Hey guys, Jason here with Damien, and we are back for the fourth episode of TCG Revisited. Today's episode is, in my opinion, a very interesting, one of the more interesting episodes, because these decks, these concepts are so near and dear to my heart. I guess they all kind of are, though, so I shouldn't really say that. I love all my children equally. No, I don't. Anyway, it's Vestiges of the Past, and well, the reason I call these Vestiges of the Past is because these are all like old school control decks that were the leading archetypes from the earlier days of Duel Masters. You know, they focus more on like good stuff and like attrition rather than actual synergies. And I would argue, like, by the modern definition, they fall more into the mid-range play style in contrast to like the sweatier control decks we saw in Season 2 in like IDC meta. Now, let's jump into the meat of the video. For the Bolmeteus Water Dark Fire control style deck, I think this is going to be the simplest of the three because it only has 3 civs and no soul swap. And I think even though this deck is really solid, I think power creep leaves this deck behind the most. Because it doesn't play any of the super broken stuff, right? It doesn't play like Petrova because it can't. It doesn't play Cranium Clamp, which it can, and it doesn't play Soul Swap, which it can't. I don't think there are too many concepts for this, honestly, aside from reevaluating the card choices. Because, I mean, you could argue that the spiritual successor is either like Swap Box or like Ballast Bodge, if you're going like sweatier control or like funkier on the Bolmeteus, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, this one was this is a very classic deck. It's very straightforward.
Yeah.
I think they keep the essence of the deck though. We want to try to keep the same civs and
Yep.
not go too far out.
Yeah. Yeah, you are right. It is very classic. And hearing you say that truly warms the cockles of my heart. This sounds super boring, but I think there's kind of 2 ways we can look at it. So one way, which I don't really like, is we can make this like a dragon plus spells deck. So you kind of give up on like the creatures and you just play like Velerica and like a whole bunch of spells and chargers. Which I think is like, I don't know, I don't really like it that much. But another thing we can do is, if we want to keep the essence better, is we can just be super boring and play more like high value cards. So I think cards that could benefit this deck, which we've learned from Season 2 and 3, like there's Slash Charger, Cranium Clamp, Aqua Surfer, Spiral Gate, and Pyro. I think if we can find a way to fit these cards in the deck, maybe we could also improve performance. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that could work, but it also would be pretty hard because I think one thing about this deck was how consistent it could be. If we start taking counts down just to fit in these extra cards, we might affect the consistency of it.
That's very true. I've actually thought about this for a while, even before I did the video. So I will I will go over my proposed changes. So I think, oh man, I had handwritten notes. Man, these are pretty good changes. Great job, Jason. So one thing we can do is we can replace Coral for Aqua Surfer. I think that's reasonable. There's no special synergies for Coral. There's no Miraculous Rebirth. There's no Bronze Arm. So I don't think there's much value to having it, especially over Surfer. And Surfer's a trig, so that lets you compete with the New Age aggro decks a bit better. We could replace the Mecha Dragon's Breath with Apocalypse Vice. I think Mecha Dragons was there for Petrova, but I mean, Blizzard's already pretty good, right?
Yeah.
We could probably take out the Locos for Cranium Clamps because, I mean, Soul Swap's a -1, so like, if you can Cranium Clamp, I think Cranium Clamp is like, has sort of like type advantage over Soul Swap, if you know what I mean. Like, it just makes Soul Swap like harder to do. So we can take out Loco for that. And then we can take out like 1 Lost Soul for 1 Terrapit, because I think 4 Terrapits is like really good. Maybe Galk Life can go and then we can play another like Bolmeteus or Baz. We can take out Bloody Skeeto for Spiral Gate, and then try to fit in another one somehow. Maybe take out like Bloody Skeeto and Phantom Dragon's Flame for like 4 Spiral Gate. And then Eureka Charger, I think, is a little bit sus. So we can maybe look at replacing some Eureka Chargers for like 1 Slash and 1 Volcano Charger. So a lot to unpack here.
I think a lot of it makes sense. With all the discard, I think the Spiral Gates work really well, along with Surfer as well. The Coral changes, I think, taking out Coral from a lot of decks.
Yeah, Coral is being naturally selected out, Damien. That's what's happening here. I think you don't mind this deck, right?
This is my favorite out of the controls. I generally don't like too much control. It's fun for one person and really not fun for the other one.
Yes. That seems correct.
Yeah. But I think this one is the most true to itself in what it's trying to do.
It is, as the kids would say, based.
Nice.
Okay.
We're young.
Yeah.
We're still young.
Yeah, we're young. We're jiggy with it. Okay, no, that just showed my age by saying that. But yeah. I guess the last question is, if we replace Galk Life, it probably makes sense to play another Baz, right? Like, Baz is just so good.
Yeah, I think the Blizzards is doing enough of that anyways. It's doing essentially the same job.
Yeah. I wonder, but you know what will be interesting to test is that, are we playing too few creatures? Because I think one of the cool aspects of this deck is that if you were playing against something that had a stronger endgame, like, I don't know, Alcadius or like a sweatier control deck, then it would resort to like Hulkus Coral Rush, and then like Baz Speed Attacker is also not bad. And I just realized, if we cut down on Loco, we actually don't have that many attackers. But then I guess, like, are you really attacking with Loco anyway?
I think most of the big attackers, you can sort of get around, well, other than Alcadius, you can sort of get around with, like, Thresh and Corpse Charger.
True, yeah.
Just cycling those to stall while your Bolmeteus breaks. And sort of protecting him. And then the Spiral Gates will help you stall again, yeah. So maybe that's how you win? You just always go for the end game and you just don't go for rushes.
That's true, yeah. That's very disciplined, so you be clear with what you want, so you can go for it. Life advice from Damien of the Gauntlet. Okay, moving on to the next deck, we have Phal Control. So, you know, this deck is it's like an inferior version of Deck Out in many ways. I think it is complicated by being in the shadow of something else. But in terms of evolving it, I think there's some options there. So, you know, one is to retain the Civ composition and give it a greater sense of identity. Or we can swap water for nature and kind of try to resemble the 4 most control decks that do well in the IDC. Yeah, so I guess to start things off for light, if we keep the same colors, I think we talked about this in a previous video as well. Like, we could just play like a deck out skeleton and play like a very thin gladiator lineup. I don't really want to go down the route of having like 2 deck outs, but that's an option. And then another option would be to build this as a Miraculous Meltdown deck that's built around like a Ghastly Drain, Meltdown, Pyro. But then you said that because our environment is so heavily metagamed, that probably wouldn't work, right?
Yeah. I mean, we could build it anyways and test against decks that have no reply to it. Just to see how the engine works. But I think in our own meta, it's a bit difficult.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, yeah, these are the options. So you can tell that I'm very biased towards changing the colors of this deck to Light, Fire, Dark Nature. So potentially this is the more appealing option. So we basically treat this as a Phal deck with Soul Swap, right? We squeeze in some Belix, we make it a little bit sweatier. We play like the usual suspects like Sky Sword, Bronze Arm, probably like Volcano Charger. I think the thing that you might not like about that deck is that it probably has to play Volcano Charger, and then so you have this dynamic of like Phal not being able to like recycle one of the spells. And
All right, because it's in your mana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But other than that, it's kind of what you'd expect. I mean, without spoiling too much, we were able to play some games with an experimental build the other day. So what did you think of that build, Damien? It's not as good at the other control decks at gaining card advantage because, well, in the sense that we don't have water, or at least hand advantage. But there's ways, right? There's like Belix, there's Phal, there's like the one Rumbling Terrorhorn, the one Morbid Medicine.
Yeah, this deck, it was pretty crazy how much resources it could get. Like that from the discard as well, and from the mana. It's just like, and you can always get it whenever you need. The Soul Swap makes it a lot cheaper to play big spells from the discard.
Yeah.
Because, was it 3 mana for Phal? And then if you want to play Terra Pit or Searing Wave or whatever, it becomes really cheap from the discard.
Yeah.
I remember you were clearing the board quite easily.
Yeah. Yeah.
With like very little cards.
Yeah. The power of mana ramp. It's like, we don't need cards in hand. And it's funny because like we were, how we started playing Lorcana and then we were like, maybe like hand is better than like than mana. But Duel Masters TCG, they're both pretty good.
Yeah, I think the Belix replaced the Thrash pretty well.
Yeah.
I mean, for creatures you've got Soul Swap, for spells you've got Belix, so you have access to everything in your mana zone again.
Yes, correct.
And yeah, it was just really good. And if you don't play spells in your mana, you can play Belix early. So
yeah,
I think that happened too many times.
All right, you tried to rush
to ruin all my rush plans.
It's that roll compression. # roll compression. Yeah, no, that's very valid because when you test as a deck, the perspective is very different, right? Because you get a bit of a victim complex, I guess, when things don't go your way. But then when the opposite person's perspective is probably just as valid because they see like how the deck is functioning, right? Like, is it trash? Like, what's it doing well? So yeah, that's why I like to have these conversations with you.
Nice.
Yeah, no, I think this is pretty straightforward. It's more straightforward than I thought. I guess it's because I did a lot of like homework for it.
Yeah, this one's a bit harder to explain until the
videos come out.
We show them the games because we can list it all out, but the way the deck works is very different.
Yeah, that's true. All right. So stay tuned for more. We are not closing shop just yet. Okay, so before we move on, do you have any thoughts on the old or updated version of Phal Control, air quotes?
You guys know like my opinion on Forcive decks. I never get what I need, so
yeah.
If it was me, I would have taken one out, but I think the deck works really well. I think I'm just not used to using Forcives.
Yeah. Which would you take out though? I mean, like they all seem pretty like necessary, right?
I don't think. I think for the deck to run as well as it currently is, I don't think you can.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of brain power needs.
Yes, that's true.
For this to run well, to pilot this deck.
Yeah.
It's also early on you need to get pretty lucky.
Yeah, like you get the color that you need. Especially if you can charge Sky Sword on turn 1. Yes!
It's a creature as well, so
Yeah.
Bellix doesn't pick it up.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah, Bellix is like our new religion. We're obsessed with Bellix. And moving on to the final deck of the video, we have Swap Box, or Water, Dark, Fire, Nature, Midrange, air quotes, even though it's kind of control-y in nature. So this is the last list that we had, I think. And it's very interesting because I feel like this is a concept, at least in Japan. It really took off when DM13 came out, because Judgment is like the glue that holds the deck together. Without Judgment, sometimes I feel like it doesn't run that well. Like, it has a lot of like surprise factor, but it doesn't feel that consistent. Do you get that sense, Damien?
Yeah, occasionally. It's hard to
like to get the colors you need, you have to pray, and then you don't have 2-drops, so you're really at the mercy of like going first a lot of the time unless you have good trigs.
Yeah, the another problem was the early control in this deck. It's really it is control when you get to the late game, the later half, but early on there's not much.
Yeah.
You're kind of just trying to deal with the board as best as you can.
Yeah. So, when I first worked on this deck, there were a lot of things that like I wanted to include. I really wanted to play Poisonous Mushroom because it was a mainstay in the similar OCG lists, and I really like the idea of playing Miraculous Rebirth, like 3 or 4 copies, because it's kind of like the stand-in for Judgment if you think about it, right? It's like the dual Civ 6-drop that gives you a lot of card advantage, at least supposed to. So yeah, I really like that. Now, I think I feel like I tried to do too much in the original list. It's like, we need like the early game clears, so like Searing Wave, Corile. We want to get the gimmicks of Cryptic Totem, Jagalzor, and so I feel like it's there's too much going on. And I can see that time and perspective has allowed me to arrive at that conclusion. See, I'm maturing. Now, I don't think there's like... Okay, so the changes that I'm looking at are, I want 6 slots dedicated to some combination of Mushroom and Bronze Arm, and I want 6 slots dedicated to some combination of Hulkus and Stream. So that's where we'll start off the discussion.
Yeah, I think that works. We the mushroom putting creatures in is good because you've got Soul Swap. So you're saying 12 slots in the deck is for the ramp and draw?
Yes. Yeah. So my knee-jerk reaction is to say 4 Mushroom and 2 Bronze Arm because you need 2-drops. And then 3 Hulkus, 3 Stream, because we can't go too light on the energy stream because we're playing Mushroom.
Right, yeah. I think that works. One of the requirements for Soul Swap to work properly is you need the mana count.
Correct.
To get the big creatures out. So I think mana ramp was pretty important. If you can get 2 or 3 early on, then you're pretty set up to just throw out Bolmeteus if they break into a Soul Swap or something.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you did that to me a couple of times. It's like I broke into you and then like you Soul Swap Bolmeteus and I just like lost 2 turns after. It's like, what? This is not supposed to happen yet.
Yeah. It's like breaking into Surfer. It's like
yeah.
The game just changes.
Yeah. And then I touched on it earlier. I think I want 3 to 4 copies of Miraculous Rebirth to hold the deck together. So looking at the list we have now, maybe we take out like 2 Searing Wave for like 2 Rebirth, and then the 3rd Searing Wave for like either the 4th Rebirth or the 2nd Apocalypse Vice. Because Vice is really good in this deck, I think.
Yeah, it is. But Rebirth is really good because you've got cards that do stuff when they come out.
Yes, exactly. And that's kind of why, like, it's really important to have Corile in the deck. Because, you know, based on our previous discussions, it's like, oh, you just take out Corile for Surfer. But I think because Corile is a pretty good Rebirth target, we actually need to keep it, I think.
Yeah. Because you're essentially clearing 2 creatures with 1 card.
Yes, exactly. It's like a mini board wipe.
Yeah, and you block their draw.
Yeah. Now...
Yeah, I think that's good. And it's such a rare occasion where you can Rebirth something to get Surfer out.
Yes, that's true. Like, you can only Rebirth Surfer, right?
Sometimes it is just Surfer, yes. Yeah. So you're just trading Surfers.
But if we could get unserious for a moment, like Rebirth, it hasn't happened often, but rebirthing a Surfer for Cryptic Totem is like the most hilarious thing ever.
It's so good.
But insane.
Or Jigalzor?
Yeah, we
into
can.
Win.
Yeah.
Rebirth into Win.
But in saying that, I think one of the sadder decisions that I'm having to arrive at is this deck may be better off without Cryptic Totem. So I will explain. Now, we originally wanted to feature Cryptic Totem in something, right? In Season 2, we were like, this card is like too good, too interesting to not be in any of the decks. And this seemed like the best vehicle for it. But I think in Season 3, we learned that or also like the Cryptic Jigalzor combo was like pretty cool. But in Season 3, we learned that Cryptic Totem is not a card that you really build your deck around, right? It's a one-off that you play in the sweaty Soul Swap decks. So it's like, I need, what deck is good at building a board and like not attacking? And then, you just play like one Cryptic Totem. So because Cryptic Totem has found a new home, or new homes, plural, I think we can actually get rid of him here. And then we just play more consistently, we just play like, 2 Bolmeteus and like 2 Baz. And then we can keep Jigalzor because he's kind of cute.
Yeah. It's kind of cute. Like a dragon.
Yeah, he's a dragon. And, you can like, I'm sure there's a turn where you can have like one guy out. You can like hard cast Jigalzor, Soul Swap Bolmeteus, break with the one guy, and then double break with Bolmeteus. I mean, it's not bad too, because the Jigalzor Cryptic win is also like pretty hard to get, like the OTK. A lot has to happen.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. But what also would change things, I guess, is if you're playing a lot of Rebirth, Cryptic Totem you can get out a lot more consistently, even if you just have 1 copy.
Ooh.
And maybe keeping 1 copy in would be interesting. I think it's something to try.
Yep. Yeah.
But I think you'd only play 1.
Yes.
And then you put up the Bolmeteus count in case it's in your shield.
Yeah. Yeah, one thing I've come to learn is that Bolmeteus just carries decks like so much, It's like this deck is not consistent at winning, but like whenever you get Bolmeteus, you win. So it's like, maybe we should play more copies, eh?
I think the original idea was just to throw a bunch of stuff in your mana zone and then just soul swap good things out when you get the chance.
Yeah.
But then consistency wise, I think it's not that great.
Yeah.
Because if 2 of those cards need the other ones to work properly.
Yes, that's true.
So like it didn't really work that well. But if we put up those counts and then Rebirth lets you search for them better, that could be good.
Yeah, that's true. Jigalzor. If anything, I think Jigalzor is the card that you drop, but like I like it. I think it's really interesting, so I want to keep it.
Yeah, it's okay. Just 1 copy.
Yeah, just one's fine. All right. So that brings us to the end of today's episode. Damien, do you have any closing thoughts for this deck or any of the others covered in the video?
Yeah, I think these decks were probably the ones I like least. It's a great way to end it. I generally don't like control too much, and I don't know how to better improve them. So I think all your points you said were really good. I think they make sense to me.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for trusting in my leadership, Damien. It always makes me happy to know. All right. So I guess that wraps it up. Thank you guys so much for watching. And as usual, we'll catch you in the next one.